welcome back to the channel. I'm Kevin, and today I am trying to fill up some of this blank space on my wall with an art piece from Tower of God. A while ago I saw a post on Reddit where somebody 3D printed a Pikachu in a few different layers, so it shifts as you view it from different angles. I thought that was pretty cool, and had an idea to do this with Hwoarang as he unleashes his arm. I spent some time looking for the perfect image, but it just didn't feel quite right. I think I'll come back to this concept at some point, but while I was looking for references, I got distracted by another idea. As much as I've been enjoying the anime so far, I think they missed out on one of the most iconic shots of early season 2 of the webtoon. I absolutely love this panel, and I can't be the only person that had this as their desktop background at one point. I decided to make a 3D layered shadow box, so it could have the nice silhouette with the smoke in the background. I want to stress that, like most of my projects, I did absolutely no research ahead of time. I didn't even know what these were generally called until I started making this video. I started by outlining the different layers in GIMP. This was partly to act as a reference during the modeling, but mostly it was a way for me to work through different ideas. I did most of the modeling in one sitting. I just traced the designs with a plane and then extruded it. A subdivision surface modifier and some creased edges did most of the heavy lifting. I applied some colors to get a preview of the final product. I should really do this more often because it worked out great. The next day I came back and added support for these pieces and divided everything up for printing. I just kinda eyeballed this step, which worked out well enough, but there's probably a more disciplined approach. Printing this was an absolute nightmare. It kept failing and I wasn't sure why. It was very weird because the first layer was perfect, and then all of the following layers were messed up. Props to Johnny Davila for calling out the grid infill as an issue on my last video. But unfortunately, I didn't see that until I spent a week fighting with this. I got impatient and changed everything I could think of at once. I decreased the speed, increased the temperature, and changed the infill setting. It did work, and I think the infill was the major culprit, but I do need to do a little bit more testing and see if any of the other changes I made had an impact. After I finally got the settings right, this looked pretty good right out of the printer, so I just did a bit of sanding and then sprayed it with some primer. Painting was unexciting. I overestimated my ability to nicely paint the black frame, so I had to go back and touch this up a few times. Once the pieces were painted, I glued the first layer into position. I used Activator with my superglue for the first time, and man, have I been missing out. Afterwards, I test fitted the silhouette, and carefully added some black paint behind the red eyes, so it would look like these details had black pupils. Before doing the final assembly, I applied some spray on matte sealer, since I wouldn't have access to a lot of these areas later. A few hours later, I glued the rest of the pieces together. I finished this off with one final round of matte sealer. The results are okay, in my opinion. The mockup in Blender looks significantly better, because, as I am just realizing now, I put zero thought into how the lighting would work. I now get why the Pikachu designer had the back open, and why a lot of people include LEDs in their shadow boxes. It's definitely not a masterpiece, but I will enjoy displaying it. If nothing else, it was more artistic than most of my projects, and was a nice change of pace. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll post all the files on Thingiverse in case you want to make your own.